Follow the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Mitch and Paulie getting a little vacation time in. Stormy Buonantony and Jonathan Von Tobel holding it down for the rest of the week as we welcome you back to Follow the Money live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. Coming up in about 30 minutes, Frank Schwab, NFL and sports betting analyst over at Yahoo Sports, is going to stop by. He has been doing the process ahead of training camp and the NFL season getting underway of ranking his NFL teams in order, and we have been doing the same thing in college football, breaking down our money moves, so the show that we typically host from 12 to 2 Eastern here on VSiN every week, our own top 25 college football rankings, which is how we're going to kick off the hour. We've been doing a slow reveal, 2 teams a day for the last 2 days. 25 Nebraska, 24 Kansas State, 23 USC. Yesterday we did USC and 22 Boise State, and today we have a pair of teams bunched up from the Big 12. I do want to say real quickly, too, and I think this is important to remember. Our conversations about these teams, while we will talk about season win totals and how we project them in the conference, our rankings are not schedule dependent. This is based on what we think about the team, what they're going to put out on the field, how good they're going to be, not taking the schedule into account for the specific ranking, which I think is important because we do have 2 Big 12 teams that are coming up right here. And those schedules are very difficult because that league is so deep.
Yes, and difficult because there's parity and there's just a bunch of teams that are on the same level with one another. So number 21, Texas Tech checks in today as our 21st ranked team in our Follow the Money Moves top 25 college football rankings, sponsored by, that has yet to be filled in, so feel free to reach out.
Yep. We'll get one soon. Let us know.
I'll take whatever money you got. So the Red Raiders, I don't know how you feel about this team. I think I'll have to pull up our rankings too so I can kind of compare and contrast with where we were, but feels pretty simple with Baylor, right? Like 2 Big 12 teams that are bringing a lot back, have a returning quarterback, and expectations, especially a program that's actually starting to throw a lot of money into it. Which is
why, real quickly, we might as well say, Baylor is 20. So we have Texas Tech and Baylor right there. I think that they're very similar and on par with one another.
And that's pretty much it, right? Like, I think it speaks to, we're going to have like a glut of Big 12 teams. And I think you could go, well, that's easy. You just were looking at the Big 12. No, like, I think that this is pretty apt. Like, I think the Big 12 is farther behind than our Power 4 conferences, and they're all kind of close to one another. Good enough to be considered top 25 teams, but not good enough to be considered amongst some of the best. But for Texas Tech specifically, the big question is obviously, are you going to get another full season out of Baron Morton? The guy's been a dude that's missed a ton of time. Backup quarterback position I don't think is particularly great. You are kind of restocking at different positions. They've brought in a bunch of bodies along the offensive line. You're trying to replace Taj Brooks. You're bringing in guys like Quentin Joyner and others. But that is really the question is, despite all the returning starters, is Baron Morton going to be healthy? He was relatively healthy last year, but he doesn't have a history of doing that.
Yes, that's where I was going to go. That's a big part of the handicap for me when you look at Baylor big picture, because he is coming off shoulder surgery, missed the bowl game because of it, missed a good chunk of spring because of it, and this is something he's had issues with for the last 2 years. Now, did have 3,335 yards last year, 27 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. His pass attempts per game were 7th most in the country. If he does stay healthy, though, which ideally he can, like all of the reports are that he's going to be full go and everything's fine and dandy right now entering the season, I don't think he needs to be a game changer. I think he just needs to continue to take care of the football, be dependable in the pass game. He's not a big run threat, but if he can do all of the other little things, that will play out nicely for Texas Tech, who, in case you missed it, has maybe the most expensive roster in college football. They have the number 2 transfer portal class this year. And so these are my 2 big questions. 1, quarterback, and 2, how will this injection of transfer portal talent for Texas Tech come together? Because we've seen it for a handful of teams really work, and it's been awesome. And then in walks a team like Florida State, where we see it crash and burn. Or you think the first year of Colorado, when they had that big injection of talent and all these expectations, and that they did not live up to. So what version of that do we get from Texas Tech?
Yeah, I think it's a fair ask. And what you're going to do with this team, like, I think a lot of what they did in the offseason is really baked into what these numbers are, right? Win total of 8.5, slightly shaded to the over at -115. I kind of tend to think that there were maybe doing a little bit too much with the win total for the most part. I would very much actually lean under 8.5 when you look at where this team's at. Again, I don't trust that Morton's going to be able to put a full season together. He just hasn't really, outside of 1 year, proven it to us that it's going to be the case. Even if they do, Stormy, from a schedule standpoint, a lot of this, obviously, most of this is factored in, but what I don't think is factored in is a trip like Houston, I think, being a little bit more difficult than what it looks like on paper. A home game against a BYU team that you believe, right? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, not going to make an appearance in our top 25, but that you believe maybe even could be a little bit better than most expect with, and that you included, the absence of Jake Retzlaff, which, of course, we know now he's withdrawn from the program. I don't know if there's realistically a year here for Texas Tech where we're talking about laying even minus 115 and saying, 9 wins, 10 wins is on the horizon when you have the opponents that you do and maybe even some of the improved opponents that you're going to face in this Big 12 schedule.
Yes, and for our non-television audience, so people that are listening on the radio or in podcast form later, if you didn't see that graphic, those are some of the, let's call them sneaky spots. You also have games at Utah very early in the season at Rice-Eccles Stadium, at ASU, who just won the Big 12 and had a spot in the CFP, and at Kansas State, 3 teams who are considered at the top of this conference and favored to win the league as a whole. So you have some tough road trips that you have to overcome as well. Again, that transfer portal class is awesome. Of the 21 kids they brought in, 13 are former 4-stars. They went hard on the defensive side of the ball. 2 of their 3 preseason all-conference defensive players are incoming transfers, and David Bailey coming out of Stanford and Lee Hunter from UCF. They were a top 15 offense last year, best in the Big 12. They were a bottom 10 defense. So if that defense raises to the level that they certainly expect and hope it to be, this could be a very good team. But that schedule is very difficult, which now let's go over to Baylor and their betting profile. Season win total from 8.5 now to 7.5, but we actually view Baylor as a tick better than Texas Tech on our rankings.
Yeah, for me, the tiebreaker essentially was I actually kind of like Dave Aranda. I think he's going to be I think he's a pretty good coach. Obviously, it's funny where you're at now, where the freak out last year was, this guy's going to get fired if they don't turn this around, and they ultimately did. But I think when you have as much returning personnel on defense as this team does, and a mind like that calling the shots for that unit, I think outside of what they're bringing back on offense, that is really going to help this team take a very strong step forward, I think, this year. For me, I'd rather go over Baylor 7.5 than over, obviously, with Texas Tech at 8.5. But I just kind of believe in Aranda what this defense is going to be. I also think when you look at it from the quarterback standpoint, I thought Sawyer Robertson looked the part last year. Obviously, a much larger sample size of work, 354 dropbacks, a PFF passing grade of 75.2. Overall, offensively, was kind of touching near the 80s. Does need to cut down on the turnover-worthy plays, something you and I have discussed with a lot of these guys. But if you get above-average quarterback play and a defense that's really going to be, I think, even better than last year, I think that there is a very solid step forward to take here for Baylor that's not being factored into a win total like that.
Yeah, the pass defense for Baylor was the issue, and they've brought in guys to correct that issue, right? So I do like the defense on the surface, and with not only your starting quarterback in Sawyer Robertson back, you also have Jake Spavital back as your offensive coordinator to maintain that quarterback coordinator continuity, which we know across college football is so important for a lot of these guys. Last year, more than 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, led the Big 12 in total QBR, which I think goes a little bit under the radar because of how many good quarterbacks there are in this league. He has his lead wide receivers back, added a couple nice transfers in that room as well. A couple exciting running backs that I don't think people are talking about enough. Dawson Prendergrass and Bryson Washington, different styles of runners, but both very effective guys. And the O-line returns 4 starters. I was looking at this stat from ESPN Stats and Info. Baylor's offense gained at least 20 yards on 8.7% of its snaps, 10th best in college football last year, gaining 0 or fewer on just 27.7, which is 19th best in college football there. That's a very good combination. Those two things continue to come together, you're scoring a lot of points. And if the defense does enough, which we expect them to be better, why couldn't they go over this number?
Yep. I think that in this team, too, you get all the tough games at home, obviously, that's going to benefit you when you're talking about the opponents like K-State and others having to make the trip out there to face you. Arizona State among them. We've talked about Arizona State, and we will talk about them as part of this top 25 a little bit later. Not today, but in our rankings. I think that this is one of those groups where you look around the Big 12 and sometimes you see those risers like come out of nowhere. I don't think Baylor's coming out of nowhere. They have win total 7.5. They did really well. They're bringing back a ton of personnel, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see this Baylor team really make a push for a Big 12 championship title berth. I don't think that's the craziest thing in the world to look at that, especially when you consider personnel and what they have to go through here from a scheduling standpoint.
And JVT, we're going to find out a lot about the Baylor Bears very early on in the season. So August 29th, they open the season against Auburn. They are at SMU week 2. They get Stanford week 3, and then they're taking on the defending Big 12 champion in Arizona State. So those first 4 weeks, we will really get a good gauge of what this team is.
Yep, and the good part is a couple of those are going to be at home. So, like, that's, again, going back to that part of at least being able to draw the best possible outcome when you're talking about taking on some of these opponents. Their schedule on paper is very tough. Like Utah, K-State, Arizona State, all part of conference play.
Splits.
Yep, exactly. So our differences here, I was a little higher on Baylor in my original rankings. I had them up to 19th. You had them at 23rd. Texas Tech, I had them at 23rd. You had them at 21st. So we were kind of right around the same length there. So kind of splitting the baby. 20th and 21st, Baylor and Texas Tech there.
That first game of the season against Auburn, I know we've talked some SEC this week with SEC Media Days going on. What are your expectations for this team, and specifically week 1, with kind of Jackson Arnold stepping into that offense? Hugh Freeze really believes that he can handle business there, which will, I mean, no matter who you got, it was going to be an upgrade over what they had last season.
Yeah, actually, and I was kind of a Jackson Arnold stand going into last year. I thought that they were going to be able to do something with him, and ultimately didn't really work out. If he's going to be and reach the potentials, which I think he can in that offense, I think Auburn's actually going to be pretty plucky. But when you talk about being a little overvalued or undervalued, or where you're rating these teams, I thought that should be a little bit closer to pick. So we'll see if the market, by the time we get to kickoff, pushes us up to that true field goal where you can grab that. You know, that's going to be a very vital number for you, getting 3 at home with Baylor. Don't know if the market would actually let you have it, but I think Baylor's going to be live, even with my thoughts of Arnold, to potentially get this thing done. I think they're being a little undervalued in their stance at home here.
Yeah, 2.5-point spread in that season opening game. Total 57.5. I'm kind of split on Auburn right now. 5 and 6 win seasons the last 2 years. Win total 7.5, and all of these expectations that it's just going to click this year, and that the offense could be the. I saw one report that said the Auburn offense could be maybe the most improved unit in all of the SEC this year, and that's a pretty big statement, I would say.
Also low bar. Right.
Very true. Okay, we got to take a quick time out. When we come back, stick with us, continuing the college football conversation, but diving back into some of those Mountain West teams we didn't have the opportunity to discuss earlier.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
And with the first pick in the 2025 circa MLB draft, the Yankees go off the board. That was just texted to us from Mike Palm, VP of Operations here at Circa, who we had on the program a little while ago. And all 3 of us said, we can't take the Yankees. They go number 1.
Yeah. Astros, by the way, which would have been my pick, they went 3rd. We don't know what the second overall pick. Yeah, we did not get the second pick. But look, these drafts are always nuts. I think it's even what Palm said. You'll have guys chasing payouts, things like that. As we mentioned last year, the Guardians were the first selection with the first overall pick. By the way, I mean, it's quite the sweat. Because I remember watching Juan Soto against Cleveland Guardians hit a walk-off homer that sent him into the World Series last year. So it was quite the run for the Guardians there, too. But you'll see guys chasing these payouts. And either way, I am not surprised and also surprised that the Yankees went first overall. That's the format of this thing. Yep. I'm just bummed we don't get the big draft board out here because Mountain West Media Days have taken over.
Yes, but I think we'll allow it. The Boise State Broncos on the official Mountain West desk out there atop of the sportsbook. I think this Media Day, and I've said this last couple years, is such a perfect example for just how far we have come with sports betting legalization that their conference commissioner felt comfortable having their Media Day here.
Regularly.
Like
they love it over here when you talk to people.
It is beautiful. Like, you should see some of the pictures that they post and put out and everything. The way that they change up the ballrooms upstairs, the set that they have down here, it's great.
I very much enjoy Mountain West Media Days, especially because it's just right upstairs, and we can go and see what's going on.
That does make it slightly convenient for us. And you have written up the Mountain West Conference for the college football betting guide that we have coming out soon.
It will be sent in today.
That's how you spent most of your morning today, procrastinating in terms of the guide, because is that your deadline today?
Maybe. And maybe I will meet that deadline. No, I will. I will meet that deadline. I promise.
Don't get Adam Burke mad at you.
No, I won't. He's not watching. So nobody's going to tell on me. Right. Yes. So I'm writing up the Mountain West. Again, to kind of reiterate, looking at what this conference looks like as a whole, it seems, I don't want to say down because that would mean this conference is relatively bad, but there is turnover. There seems to be an absence of like a true second-tier contender unless UNLV steps back up. We'll talk to Dan Mullen tomorrow, new head coach of the program, to see if that's going to be the case. So I think you're kind of looking in some other places. I think one of the teams that is very intriguing at 16-1 or thereabouts is Air Force. For those who don't remember, Air Force last year got off to an abysmal start. They were 1-7. They were getting smoked. Their offense was terrible. Kind of all culminated in that loss to Army, if you remember, when they dropped that thing 20-3. But then something changed. They start to get a hold of the offense, as service academies do, especially when there's a lot of turnovers. They end up going on a 4-game winning streak down the stretch. Some really impressive victories. Smoking Fresno State, taking out Oregon State, and just blasting them 28-0. Your Aztecs felt their fury as well in a closeout game on the road against San Diego State. I think Air Force, when you look at the veteran nature of this team, what they're bringing back, and when you we talk about that all the time, right? You want a veteran core for a team like these service academies. It's going to be pretty good. I think overall, when you give Troy Calhoun an experienced team, that team's probably going to do a lot of damage, and I think Air Force is going to be able to do that. And then you look at the way the season breaks down for them, too, Stormy, as far as win total is concerned. They don't have any power opponent on their schedule. When you're talking about the non-conference opponents, they will play Bucknell, obviously Navy and Army. UConn is on the schedule as well. They'll have to make the trip out there. And then in conference play, they will have to play, we'll call them the big boys just because they're the top of the odds board in Boise State and UNLV. But after that, it's a wide-open Mountain West schedule that I think they could really take advantage of. I think Air Force is going to be pretty live here. You see their win total at 5.5. It's obviously heavily shaded to the over at -170. I think it's worth taking a stab at them in that 16-1 range to win the Mountain West Conference. It's kind of hard to super buy into it just because they're going to be, if I'm right, and they're in the Mountain West Championship game, more than likely against Boise State. They're going to be prohibitive underdogs. You're not really going to be in a position to do anything with it. But I do think there is inherent value that I think that their odds of winning this conference is greater than what 16-1 is. You can also, let me pull up my notes, double check what this total is. You can also find conference win totals for a lot of these teams. DraftKings, among some others, hangs them up. Their conference win total is 3.5, shaded to the over at -160. Again, I know a lot of people balk at laying a big price, but I think that this win total in conference play, you could argue, maybe should be a little bit closer to just over 4 as opposed to 3.5. So I think there's a strong argument to be made for this Air Force team to have a very strong year.
Yeah, and I think about them being able to get to 5 wins last year despite all of that massive roster turnover that they had. Now it's a more seasoned group. I'm still laughing about when we had Mike Palm on the program, and he was asking about how long Troy Calhoun has been the coach. We were like early high school when he took that job. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, what year was that? What year did he take over? Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's right. It's about midway through my high school career.
Yeah,
that's right.
Been there for a minute.
Forever.
So as you were kind of weaving your way through the conference, and remember, by the way, you can always Follow the Money in podcast form wherever you get your podcast if you want to go back and listen later. We really dove into the top teams in the conference earlier in the show, and so now we're kind of weaving our way through the rest. But as you were going through your research, was there another win total or two that stood out to you one way or another? Like if you want to go over or under on a team based on what you saw? No,
so there wasn't a win total per se. Outside of, I should mention, I do think UNLV's win total is a little high here. We're sitting at 8.5. Now, it is shaded to the under at -125, so I think you're getting closer to where this should be priced. I thought under -140 was probably going to be a little bit more of a fair lay on the 8.5, so I think there is some inherent value there at under -125. But again, when you have just so much turnover and you just don't know what's going to happen and you're just losing so much, part of the reason why UNLV was so good the last few years, but specifically last year, Stormy, as I mentioned in my write-up, which people read when it comes out, that was, I don't even think it's arguably, the best defensive program history that you saw last year. They forced 20 turnovers, gave up just about 21 points per game, gave up about 5 yards per play. All of that is now gone. Your biggest returner is a guy who missed a lot of time due to injury. I do think that there is a steep drop-off defensively, potentially for UNLV. And if that's the case, then obviously this team's, I think, a little bit more vulnerable in the first year for Mullen. I think they're there because of, again, the lack of power overall in the conference. But I still think that it's more realistic. This team is floating around 8 wins or so. Look, they have a relatively manageable schedule. They are near double-digit, or not double-digit favorites. They are near 2-touchdown favorites, -13 at Sam Houston to open the season. The UCLA game, they will be a home underdog. I wouldn't say no to being on the road against Miami, a sneaky tough spot right before you start conference play. On the road against the Wyoming Cowboys, being a pretty tough situation to be in as well. You've got to make the trip to Boise, too. And don't sleep on November 29th. As I think I mentioned this a couple of days ago, I don't know, and this was the other team I was going to bring up, so it's a nice segue. I don't know if Nevada is going to go over its win total of 3.5. It is shaded to the over at -150. But I think Jeff Choate's a pretty good coach. And I think that Nevada, when you look at what they have done to this point, being a very well-coached team, the fact that they were able to spring not even just a couple of upsets, but cover some numbers, be pretty effective on the ground, I think that this group's going to, at the very least, be a very big pain in the ass. And so just from a rating standpoint, maybe looking to back Nevada ATS-wise as you get into conference play, I don't know if they're going to sneak up on anybody, especially if you're really paying attention to the market, but I think Choate did a really good job with them last year, and I think that's going to carry over again to this year.
Sure. With UNLV, I go back to kind of the conversation around Texas Tech with all of the influx of transfers that they have. There's a lot of new names and new pieces that are in here for UNLV, and that does make me question, and everyone, make your own decisions for yourselves, how you view the transfer portal and, new injected players into your lineup. Sometimes it can be great, but sometimes if you do hit a rough patch, how quickly have you dived into that culture? And are you somebody that's going to stick with it or jump ship? And there are a lot of layers to being integrated into a roster quickly, especially with a new head coach and all of the other surrounding factors.
Well, and look at the mystery around it. I actually think it's a good example. We just talked to Mike, right? The unknown factor of just what this roster is going to be. Remember, we asked, he said there was only 3 players in the Mountain West listed in the Heisman market. One of them is not Anthony Calandria, the guy who's, I think that I talked to, expect to start for UNLV at quarterback. And Alex Orji, the Michigan transfer, is the one that's listed. And I don't think that's a, hey, Circa got it wrong. It's more of there is just mystery surrounding what this team is going to be. Now, here's the thing. It was the same thing last year. You just didn't really know what the quarterback position was going to be. It turned out that was actually pretty good. Haj Malik Williams ended up taking over the job coming from Campbell and was brilliant for UNLV. So there's a reality where whether it's Calandria or Orji, they both just come in here and just hit the ground running in Mullen's system and are great. You do have your returning rusher, too, in Jaden Thomas, but I just think it speaks to when you have so much turnover in so many positions, I don't know how you accurately do that. It's one of my biggest blind spots, I would say, for college football. I don't know how guys like Brad Powers and others accurately project teams when it's this much of a new look to it.
Right. And if you feel confident, fire on it. Go for it. I just don't with this team. Yep. And even, I read an article from Bill Connolly over at ESPN who said, quote, they could be absolutely anything this year, which is so true. They really could. I don't know which way that's going to go. But a reminder again, so JVT writing up the Mountain West Conference. We will have conference previews for all the Power Four conferences, all of the group of, I'm calling it 6 now, leagues as well. Full rankings and ratings from Steve Makinen on everything on down in our college football betting guide when that comes out. And if you're a VSiN Pro subscriber, now you get access to everything that we have going on at VSiN. In addition to the college football guide, you get the NFL guide, which is coming out now. And a good reminder, too, for our folks that want to bet the NFL, but you're also getting set for your fantasy team. For the first year, we're including fantasy football insights along with our trusted betting content. So check it all out. We got our early bird pricing going on right now, but it ends July 31st. So if you want that football special, $175, vsin.com/subscribe today is how you can get in on the action.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Back here on Follow the Money, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. We're holding it down this week for Mitch and Paulie. We're getting some vacation time in real quickly, JVT, because we have been getting the text updates from Mike Palm up at the MLB draft, which for anybody who misses it, they do often for all of these major sports, a blackjack tournament where the winners in order go down. You get to draft a future on a certain team. We were a part of it for the NFL this past year and a couple other sports, the MLB draft going on right now. The top pick was the Yankees. We were wondering who went to. Turned out it was the Dodgers. Third were your Astros. And then Super Dave, our guy Dave Ross, he's sick. He's picking 9th. The Mets got taken 7th.
Yes, so he ended up with the Toronto Blue Jays. So don't hate it. As I texted Mike Palm, I think it's a lineup to get hot, although I don't think they're going to win that division.
Okay, we'll do more MLB probably tomorrow and the next day, getting set up for what is the second half, teams that might be worthwhile to bet on or not. But it is VSiN's football training camp week that is rolling on now, and just like the teams are gearing up for the season, We too are dialing in our approach for win total, season-long props, awards, how we plan to attack certain teams early on in the season. And while JVT and I have been doing our college football rankings, our next guest has been doing a similar reveal in the NFL, going 32-1 in his top teams in the National Football League. Frank Schwab joining us now on the Progressive Guest Line, NFL and sports betting analyst over at Yahoo Sports. You can follow him on X at Yahoo Schwab. And so far, you are from 32 up to 12, which is kind of fun. We're getting into the nitty-gritty in those teams that you believe can be top contenders.
Absolutely. I heard today that there's 50 days until the NFL season kicks off, and it was like, wow, okay, we're getting there. It's getting close, as we know.
All right, so let me ask you this. As you're getting through these rankings, was there a team, well, you're making them, so you won't be surprised by your own rankings, but what was a team that I think is somewhat popular that you're a little bit lower on than the consensus?
Lower on, that's interesting. I think it's the Texans. Yeah. I just, and it's kind of correlated because I'm high on the Jaguars. I put the Texans ahead of the Jaguars in my rankings just because of the track record, and the Jaguars haven't proven it yet. But when a push comes to shove, I'll be picking the Jaguars to win the division. I already have that ticket in my pocket right now. I just think the Texans were not a very good football team over the last half of last season. They were 4-5 down the stretch, really looked all out of sorts. They beat the Chargers in the playoffs. We all forget it. That's all we remember is them beating the Chargers, them winning the division. They beat the Chargers in the playoffs. I don't think a lot of their problems got fixed, though. The offensive line is still terrible. I think it's the worst offensive line in football. That's what really affected C.J. Stroud last year. I think their receivers, they did a good job in drafting those two guys out of Iowa State, but are they going to really be impact guys right away? I don't think so. It's kind of Nico Collins and everybody else. And, maybe the offensive coordinator change, it fixes everything. I have a ton of respect for DeMeco Ryans. I like that defense. I really like C.J. Stroud, but I just don't think the Texans are going to be great. I don't think they were great for most of last season. I don't think they're going to be great this year. And meanwhile, I do think the Jaguars are going to take a step forward with Liam Cohen. Kind of that, I picked him as NFL Coach of the Year, as that first-year guy that brings his team out of nowhere and ended up getting the votes for Coach of the Year. I think the Jaguars and Texans flip spots in the standings this year. So
you're preaching to the choir. I bet the Jaguars are 3-1 to win the AFC South because I agree with pretty much everything you're saying at this point right now. I'll ask it this way. How confident are you in the way this division plays out? Like, you can do these exactas and 1-2 finish. Is Jags Texans pretty much what we're going to be locked into here, or is a talented Colts roster able to push its way past Houston?
That's what I was going to say. The only thing that's really a fly in the ointment there is Indianapolis. We forget they won 8 games last year with absolutely awful quarterback play. Terrible. Like, they 31st in the NFL in passer rating. We all saw Anthony Richardson play. Does Daniel Jones give them a better option at quarterback right now? Probably. I hate to say that because I really want Anthony Richardson to be a thing, but he's just not. So I just think I remember the Colts differently. I thought the Colts were terrible last year. I thought they were a double-digit loss team. And then I'm like, wait, they weren't really eliminated until I believe week 17 last year. 8-9 isn't too bad. Maybe I think a lot of things would have to happen to the Texans for the Colts to inch above them, as far as maybe Stroud misses some games or Nico Collins is out and they just have nobody to throw to. But it should play out that way. If I feel really, really confident, I don't think the Titans get out of the basement. I think Colts are probably going to finish third. And then you got the top 2 fighting it out for first place.
See, Stormy, he brings it up because the catastrophic Week 15 game at Denver, remember? They pick off and Bo Nix a bunch of times, and it looked like they were, as a Colts fan, Frank, I was like, they're going to make the playoffs. This is great.
Great.
And then they melted down.
The lateral they threw that just goes right to Nick Bonito. It's like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing?
So bad. The way the odds shake out, by the way, in the AFC South, Texans, your favorite at +110, Jags +275, Colts +380, and the Titans there at +650. Another team that, going through your rankings, I thought was interesting where you placed them, and I feel like you're going to hurt my heart a little bit here, was the San Francisco 49ers at 13. Meanwhile, they're 7th on the odds board to win the Super Bowl this year. How do you feel about the team this year, and is a lot of your feeling on their ranking have to do with kind of the elimination of a lot of guys, particularly on defense last year?
Yeah, the 49ers were the toughest team for me because on one hand, I look at that as they did go 6-11 last year. I get it. A lot of injuries, but they had the worst offseason in the NFL this year as far as just personnel acquisition. They lost 9 guys who are going to be making $10 million per year with their new team. Money talks in the NFL. That's a lot to lose in one offseason, okay? But the other side of me says this team is still pretty loaded. Like, there's no reason why Pearsall and Juwan Jennings can't be a great receiver duo. Jennings' contract will get done. I'm not worried about that. Kittle's a top 3 tight end. McCaffrey, if he returns to health, he was NFL Offensive Player of the Year 2 years ago. And so I'm just the yin and the yang. I have a ton of respect for Kyle Shanahan too. I think the defense is going to be better than everybody thinks. Robert Saleh is a heck of a coordinator. I think he's going to be a good head coach in his second go around. I know he's a good defensive coordinator. So I didn't know what to do with them. I kind of just stuck him in no man's land at 13. I think that's probably a little low, but I couldn't get him any higher because of all these questions and all the talent drain they had and the bad year they had. They had a bad season last year. So your guess is as good as mine on the 49ers. It's just a team that's one of the teams I'm going to have to watch in September and say, okay, I was right or wrong about the 49ers being good or bad. And then I'll start playing them after that because preseason, I really have no idea.
Would that mean that you lend yourself toward maybe being high on the Rams? There's a lot of people at this network think the Rams are the real deal there at the top of the NFC West.
Yeah, Rams were really, really good down the stretch last year. They kind of got their defense together, really, really young defense. Sean McVay's a heck of a coach. I think Davante Adams is a huge upgrade over Cooper Kupp. Nothing against Cooper Kupp and the career he's had. They're going to bring him back and put him in the Ring of Fame and celebrate that 2021 season he had. But Davante Adams is a lot better player right now. So, but I will say this about the Rams. When you look at the totality of everything last year, and a lot of it was a bad start, but they were a pretty mediocre team last year on the whole. And we remember the Eagles game being a lot closer than it was. Mm-hmm. They rallied and they had a chance to win it, but they were down 2 scores late. It wasn't like it was just tooth and nail the whole way. So I worry I'm overrating the Rams a little bit, but I just have such trust in McVay, the defense getting better, and Davante Adams really adding a great 1-2 punch in Nakua there. I do think slightly I'm picking the Rams to win the NFC West.
So JVT asked you if there was a team that people are high on that maybe you're not as high on. Can you do the reverse of that? Is there a team that a lot of people are really doubting this year that you think could exceed expectations and be pretty good?
Sure. We already talked about the Jaguars. I have 2 for you. Why are we so low on the Vikings? Their win total's 8.5 last I checked. Why? They won 14 games last year. Do we think Sam Darnold's that great? That's such a big loss because the rest of the team is better offensive line. They brought Aaron Jones back. TJ Hawkinson's going to be healthy for the full season. I'm not saying they're going to win 14 games again, but we act like JJ McCarthy is just some guy off the street. This is a guy they traded up to draft 10th overall, drafted ahead of Bo Nix, who had a pretty nice rookie season, a great rookie draft class. So we know this class was good. I don't see any reason why JJ McCarthy can't be somewhat similar to Sam Darnold's production last year. Why not? We all think it's funny. The same people who are like the Vikings are going to fall off are saying Sam Darnold's kind of a nobody going to Seattle, right? There's not a lot of faith in Sam Darnold right now. So I think the Vikings are very, very underrated in the market right now. That's a great coaching staff. They really improved their offensive line. The defense is going to be good again. They still have Justin Jefferson, last I checked. Jordan Addison probably isn't getting suspended. So I just view the Vikings being very undervalued in the market. And another one, not that they're sneaking up on anybody, but it's the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers could be Super Bowl contenders. This was a team that scored 502 points last year. They drafted a receiver in the first round. So I have no questions about their offense. Their offense is going to be awesome. Defense really improved down the stretch last year. Todd Bowles, good defensive coach. They play in the only weak division in the NFC. That's a team that could win that division, I think, by 3 or 4 games, maybe backdoor their way into a number 1 seed. I am really high on the Buccaneers coming into the season, not because I think they're better than the Eagles or the Lions or any of those teams, but just I think their schedule plays out to a point where I'm like, yeah, the Buccaneers could sneak up on everybody and just stumble into the best record in that conference.
25-1 for Baker Mayfield to win MVP. Would you be down with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, why not? He was last year 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, and they got better on offense. Chris Godwin missed most of the year. Igbuka was not there. Bucky Irving wasn't their running back 1 from day 1 on. That offense is better. The Tristan Wirfs injury is a big deal. Don't overlook that. He's maybe the best left tackle in football. But yeah, I don't see why Baker Mayfield can't be an MVP candidate this year.
Frank, awesome spot. Thank you for this. And we'll be keeping tabs on the list as it continues to come through. Thank you.
Absolutely appreciate it, guys.
Frank Schwab, everybody. Again, NFL and sports betting analyst for Yahoo Sports. You want to follow him on X at Yahoo Schwab. In addition to the article, he's been tweeting out each day the rankings as they come. Okay, we're going to step aside. When we come back, it is time for our in-pocket plays, and we'll give you our final thoughts on the Open Championship set to get underway for us at around 10:35 this evening.
to determine the winner of any given college basketball game.
Someone gives you 10,000 to 1 on anything. You take it. Take it. Take it.
I bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day. No way. I'll give you 3 to 1 odds. Nope. 5 to 1. Nope. 10 to 1. You're on.
All right, we're wrapping up this Wednesday edition of Follow the Money with our in-pocket plays. Quickly taking a look at how we did last night. Just one play on the board. Caitlin Clark under 2.5 3-pointers. Cash it. Came home. She was 0 for 5 from 3 through 3 quarters. Finished 1 of 7 on the day. Pushing her to now, by the way, because we talked about the road struggles from her from the perimeter this season. 2 of 35 from 3 on the road this season. Now for Caitlin Clark, and then she ended the night with a groin injury.
She's also beefing with one of the refs last night, too.
Yeah. She hit him with a, I'm going to call your mom, basically, with the, I'm going to call the league on you.
That, and I will say, as somebody who does not have a short temper in any way, shape, or form, if you hit me with this, guess what I'm not gonna do?
I don't know if I've ever seen one of those in real life. Yeah, honestly.
I like Caitlin Clark a lot, but like that moment, I would have shouted from across the court, screw you. I'm not going over there.
Not a good look. The injury, by the way, looked like a re-aggravation of her groin is significant. And this is a player, too, that didn't miss a single game in college or her rookie season. She's now missed 9 games, going to make that 10 tonight against the Liberty. Likely missing the All-Star festivities as well, which I think they should to heal up. That said, moving forward to today, just one play for me. I think I talked myself into it in Why Not Wednesday. With the Open Championship, I'm doing a top 20 2-leg parlay with John Rahm and Xander Schauffele. Rahm, somebody who I know a lot of smart people like in the outright market for the Open Championship. You were very high on him as well. I just need a top 20. He's finished T14 or better in all 3 majors this season. Finished tied for 11th at Royal Portrush in 2019. 3 top 7s in the Open Championship and is coming off a second place finish at Liv. So I like his angle. And then Xander Schauffele as well, the defending Open champ, winning at Royal Troon last year, has never missed a cut in this tournament. And he does seem to elevate in majors. I gave the stat earlier, and again, I hope I counted correctly, but has cashed a top 20 in 13 of the last 14 major championships. So let's see if we can get one more. This comes together, plus 215.
Cool, like it. I didn't have anything yesterday, so we move on to the Open Championship. Tommy Fleetwood, top 10, plus 210. Give it to me. Again, not asking him to win this thing. I do think we've gone a little too far in one direction. He was the runner-up at Royal Portrush in 2019. 2 top 10 finishes in the Open since then as well. He's performed well in courses like this. 5 top 10s this year. Look, the running joke is that he can't win any of these things. He still performs relatively well. So I think asking him to finish inside of the top 10 on a course that I think he's suited. Don't call him Fairway Jesus for nothing. I think he's going to find a lot of fairways, be pretty good here. So give me Tommy Fleetwood, top 10 plus 210. Sepp Straka win the Open Championship, 50-1. Straka's been a dude that's been in absolutely brilliant form. Also on the Von Tobel Kazarian fantasy squad. Not fantasy, pool. Solo 7th in Scotland. 6 top 10 among 12 top 15s here in 2025 for Straka. 3rd on the tour all around and 4th in adjusted scoring. And of course, tied for 2nd in the Open in 2023. I think he's in pretty good form so far this year. Pretty good shot there. And we're going to go with our guy, Robert McIntyre, to win at 45-1 as well. One of the 2 outrights we got here. Tied for 6th at the Open Championship in 2019 as well. Runner-up at the U.S. Open a month ago in good form. 7 top 15s around the world this year. Robert Mack, 45-1.
Okay, these best bets in pocket plays presented by GBank, the official bank of VSiN, as the $500 trifecta from our friends at GBank, First Bet, and us here at VSiN, all coming together. All you need to do is open a GBank Visa Signature credit card in your first 90 days, deposit and play through $1,000 at First Bet. That will trigger the $500 trifecta. You get $200 in cashback rewards on your GBank Visa Signature card. First Bet will then give you a $100 deposit match, and VSiN completes the trifecta with a free 6-month VSiN Pro subscription. That's the $500 trifecta from GBank, First Bet, and VSiN. VSiN.com/GBank for more information. This is a one-time promotion limited to customers opening a new account in response to the offer. Will not apply to requests to convert existing accounts. Apply today. Terms and conditions do apply. Again, VSiN.com/GBank, VSIN.com/GBank. And let's continue this Open Championship conversation as we are set to get underway from Northern Ireland at around 10:35 at night for us here in the Pacific time zone. It'll be you called it a golf nap earlier, like everybody get that in. Be prepared for the night. 1:35 for our friends over there in the Eastern time zone. It's about 6:35 a.m. in Northern Ireland. Scotty Scheffler, to the surprise of no one, is your favorite here. We're sub 5-1 at DraftKings plus 450. And for just sake of argument, so that we can keep it consistent with our graphics, we're going to go off of DraftKings odds here, but shop around, particularly at the top of the board. These numbers are all over the place depending on where you look, but Scheffler plus 450, Rory McIlroy plus 750, John Rahm, who we were just talking about, and and Alexander Schauffele, 12-1 and 22-1 respectively at the top.
Yeah. I think Rahm's like the guy. Like, shop around for the numbers here, but I think Rahm, including him in anything, ask him even top 5 at plus 260 or 12-1 or better. He is, I think, the number one dude. When you look at this history, obviously majors this year has been very good. Tied 14th, tied 8th, tied 7th since 2019. In 4 of the 5 Open Championships, Stormy, he's finished at least tied for 11th. That includes here in 2019. I think he's pretty well suited for this course. So I think, outside of maybe getting a little frustrated with the way the weather goes, it goes back to what we're talking about with that pool that some of the VSiN guys participate in. When I said earlier in the program that I was afraid being third, I was going to be stuck with Rory McIlroy. I just think in the grand scheme of just those top 3 guys, right? Rory, Scotty, John Rahm, in no particular order. I believe Rory to be the third of those choices. I understand he played well in Scotland, finished tied for second. I also remember when we were here last time, and I think was it a quadruple bogey on the first hole when everybody was very excited for him to come out. I understand that's probably not going to happen, but just given what we know about these guys, I'd feel more comfortable with Rahm, Scheffler, and McIlroy in that order, and we'll see what ends up happening, and Rory could end up making me look foolish, and I don't think he's going to stink. I just think of those 3, if you're limiting me to those 3 choices, I would feel stuck with Rory McIlroy if I didn't get one of the other 2.
Well, and I'm going to laugh because instead of getting stuck with Rory McIlroy, you get stuck with Scotty Scheffler, which is a pretty good place to be in. He, too, I mentioned that parlay. I think I might personally do another one just to up the value a bit. And granted, Scotty Scheffler in the top 20 markets, like minus 430 or whatever it is. But to get near that 3-1 mark a little bit, for him to be top 20, he's only been outside of the top 20 once all season, and it was a T25. The dude has just been unbelievable throughout the course of the year, so I understand why he's favored. Even in an event like last week where he had some issues, he's still 8th place. It's a great place to be in if you are involved in Scotty Scheffler in any way, shape, or form, I would say.
Yeah, and when we talked to Reed Fowler earlier, this is one of the things that maybe arises here for Scotty when we're talking about playing across the pond. But greens across the pond tend to run a little bit slower. And so when you talk about where he has struggled, it's been on those greens. It's been with his putter across the ocean in Europe and in these events in which he has struggled. So has he figured that out? Is he going to be more comfortable with the putter once he gets there? Feel pretty confident that you're going to be. But if those are running slower than obviously he's expected or used to, and how that's going to feel is really going to make the difference of whether or not he's going to be able to win this thing. But that you talk about poking holes, again, Scotty's still one of the best in the world, obviously the best in the world, you could argue right now, just given the way he's played overall this season. But when you look at some of the flaws in the game, a lot of people would point to that. Will his putter let him down this year?
Was there anyone that you had to talk yourself out of placing a bet on?
So I don't know if I had to talk myself out on a couple of guys, but there's a few. I think, like, for example, like Victor Hovland is a guy I think a lot of people are pretty high on. We know that he had, I think it was like a sore neck at the Scottish Open, but finished tied for 11th. Had a pair of, I think, like 67 rounds. He was very, very good there. I wasn't particularly high on that. The one guy I think I really had to not talk myself out of, but was very tempted by, Justin Rose. He did great in the Masters. We know that if you go back to Royal Portrush in 2019, he finished tied for 20th. He was tied for second last year at the Open as well. And then we know, of course, about the Masters we just mentioned. He finished 6th last week, too. I just think that I'm going to be in a situation where, again, like Justin Rose, he's one of those guys where he'll look really competitive for a while, but he gets really hot and then really cold with that putter, and eventually it could fall apart.
Do you guys do these drafts for all of the major championships, or is it just
no, this
the
year?
Open?
Unless I wasn't invited and they said it was a secret to not tell me. I think we just did the Masters.
Secret Society?
Yeah, the Masters and the what's this one? The Open Championship. Yeah, sorry, my brain's mush already. Me and Doug Kazarian are golf buddies, though, apparently.
How did you do in the Masters?
We finished tied for second.
Okay.
Yes.
What are the prizes? Can we know?
Because Ludwig
Aberg,
Aberg, if you remember, he was on our team and he completely collapsed down the stretch. I think he double bogey in the last 2 holes, and that caused us to fall from solo second into a tie with another team. So that sucked. I think how much is it? It's a $500 buy-in for a team or something like that.
Okay.
So
Fun.
yeah, let's
Good
do this
group.
thing.
Yeah, all that. Okay, good deal. That's a wrap for us today. This show, 3 hours actually has gone by pretty quickly.
What's
Coming
that?
up next, actually, Steve Cohen, forget that.
Yeah.
Money Moves 2 hours is just fine. Which, by the way, make sure we will be back next week, Monday through Friday, 12 to 2 Eastern, in our usual spot on Money Moves. But for now, that's a wrap for us today. We'll be back same time, same place for the next 2 days here on Follow the Money as Mitch and Paul get some vacation time. VSiN Prime Time, Matt Humans and Company coming up next. And tomorrow specifically, just kidding. No, it's best of today, actually.
Yeah, Matt Humans and Tim Murray were in earlier talking college football.
They were on Money Moves. I listened to it. I don't know why.
Oh, that's right.
I saw Humans in the wings, so I thought he was coming back in here. Opportunity
Why is
missed
he here?
by
Why
me.
do people?
Apologies.
I mean, it's a great problem.
It's a good best of coming up next.
That's right. Some would say it's the best.
The best.
Yeah.